Welcome in to Take 10 with Bob Ney and Chuck Walker here on the Walker Talks Radio Podcast Network. Bob, a former U.S. Congressman from Ohio, and we have had a very busy week as it's August the 22nd, 2024. Now, we're obviously going to talk a lot about the DNC, but we're going to start in Israel. Anthony Blinken is there. Hostage negotiations, swap outs, whatever it is we want to call this, they have heated up this week. Bob, what is our expectation?
Well, there were some hostages that were found. Unfortunately, they were deceased, 6 hostages, which has again reignited the whole hostage controversy within Israel. The Israelis are very angry, a lot of them, at Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister. They don't feel he's doing enough. Now, why is that important to mention? Because the way to try to do this is at the ceasefire hostage negotiation table, which is in Doha, Qatar. We have a intel base there, by the way, in Doha, Qatar. So sitting at the table is the country of Qatar with its representatives, Egypt, the United States, Hamas, and Israel. Amongst some other people that are also support, but those are the main people. Of course, months ago, Biden had submitted a plan and he said, here's my plan. The Israelis said they didn't know about the plan, but they actually did. At one point in time, Biden and Netanyahu had words over it. So Biden's been continuously pushing this plan. Now, the plan and the idea of getting this together with the ideas they threw out at the table in Qatar took a sidestep because Netanyahu added new demands to it. Then Hamas walked away from the table because the negotiator was killed in Tehran, which obviously made Hamas, although they're the bad guys, got to negotiate with him. It made him quite angry. And then there was the bombing at a hospital where people had been moved then into a school. And after that occurred, 90 people were killed. Hamas again walked away from the table. The Israelis had a controversy where Netanyahu was kind of privately squeezing the negotiators, not giving them room. The negotiators were saying we need more wiggle room. So all of that convoluted message I just gave is why these negotiations are 1 minute on, the next minute Israel leaves, the next minute Hamas leaves. The only ones that haven't left is obviously the Qataris and the United States and Egypt. I don't know what's going to happen, actually, Chuck. It's just going to be continuous. But I will tell you this, Netanyahu is getting extreme heat in Israel. Now, on the other side of it, though, we have to mention is Smotrich and Gavir, 2 very controversial ministers who control Netanyahu's political life. They don't want concessions. So he's getting pulled from both sides.
He's in a very, very difficult spot as he needs to retain his leadership to stay free, to stay out of jail. Very, very interesting to see how this unfolds. This week, the DNC, where I will say I've watched, all the keynote speakers every night, and I'm staying up way past my bedtime. Bob, you're on the East Coast. I don't know how you're even doing it at this point on the East Coast. All the speeches have gone long. What have we thought so far of the DNC? I thought Michelle Obama knocked it out of the park. Thought Barack Obama did what he does. He's probably the greatest orator of my lifetime. I've never voted for Barack, but I can certainly appreciate how great he is at that. And Tim Walz spoke last night. I don't know how you try to frame this guy as a horrible person. He seems like the nicest human being I have ever heard of.
Well, a few things. First of all, I'm starting to think that the first night they on purpose put Biden near midnight Eastern Standard Time, just so they don't have to deal with the Biden.
I didn't even listen him. I forgot he spoke.
There you go. So maybe it was effective. Now, I know it's running late, but that was ridiculous to have the president on the opening night at midnight, near midnight, I'll say. So following up, the next day they had knock it out of the ballpark. First, Michelle Obama knocked it out, and Barack Obama came and knocked it out. I got to say, she was better than he was. I really do think that. So both of them, though, together just had this wow moment. Whether you like Barack Obama or Michelle Obama is irrelevant. We have to judge. And if you're in campaigns, I've run them for years. I've been in them myself for my own campaigns. You have to judge what is happening. And I swear, Chuck, and I've said this on your show, I think the Democrat National Committee hired the 5 best psychiatrists and psychologists in America and said, go over all these speeches. I think they did. The psychology of this convention is it's got a mantra. It's on track. It's opening this wide net. It's not. What are they doing? USA. They're chanting USA. The Democrats have always been accused of, you're not patriotic enough. Everything's red, white, and blue. Everything's USA. Everything's, we're not going to go back. Wide open themes. So then, of course, Bill Clinton came. I thought I was getting older. He's getting older. Bill Clinton came, but
I'm blown away when people think his speech was great. I was like, this is Bill Clinton. This is not a Bill Clinton speech.
No, he was better than Hillary, in my opinion. But it's not the old Bill Clinton because he is older. And like I said, I am too. Don't get me wrong. I served in Congress when he was president of the United States. So move on to Oprah, which was okay, first speech ever at a convention, But it was okay. That's what I said. It's the first speech she's ever done at a convention. It's Oprah. She's usually more magnetic, etc. But I just wanted to mention that. Buttigieg, I thought, gave a very good speech. Pete Buttigieg. But let's go to Walz. Wow. You have to be emotionless if you just didn't watch his son, who, we now find out has ADHD and some situations with autism, maybe. And I mentioned that because, some people say, well, he's acting different. It was emotional. It was genuine. He's pointing, going, that's my dad. It was beautiful, natural, beautiful. The whole family. Walz's speech was great. He might be a chameleon in the sense that he's done some liberal things, but he has this other side to him that you can't, get it out of your memory. It's like Uncle Bill just came and met with us, and what a great lunch we had. And he offered to buy lunch. I mean, that's my perception. I thought it was good. Tonight, obviously, Kamala Harris has to knock it out of the ballpark. By the way, Bill Clinton kept calling her Kamala.
I noticed that too. I'm telling you, Bill, and Father Time is undefeated. This isn't a knock on him, but Bill Clinton was Barack Obama before Barack Obama, right? He was a great communicator. Absolutely. That's what, and the great explainer. He had some good one-liners. I'll give him that. Whoever wrote the speech, he had some good one-liners. I want to go back to Tim Walz real quick, and we'll hit on Kamala for a second. But this whole idea, as I look at this, not as a voter, but as someone who wants to think, okay, strategy going forward, because Democrats are going to vote for the Democrat, Republicans are going to vote for the Republican. That's done. When you're talking about the undecided and independent voter, I think it is such a poor idea. I don't know how, if you're somebody who doesn't buy all in either side, to frame this guy as a bad human being. You can't listen to that speech. Listen to the people who talk about Tim Walz. Yes, did he have a snitch program during COVID? Yes, they did in Minnesota. Are there some things that are concerning? Yes, there are. But to frame him as a bad person, here's what you need to say. Nice guy, good human being. You'd love for him to be your neighbor. Don't know that he's ready to lead a country. I think that's the only way you can successfully frame him, is just talking policy, talking about him being a bad guy or the most liberal, whatever. That may work for a base, but I don't know that that's going to work for an independent. My wife and I both fall on the conservative side of things, and we were watching it last night. And I'll be honest with you, Bob, I had a tear in my eye when I saw his kid, both of his kids, Hope and Gus, act that way. I thought, man, and he looked at his family and he called them all out by name and said, I want you guys are my world. That's about as a field where authenticity seems foreign at times. It seems so legitimate and sweet.
I had a situation, and I think about this of Walz, and for example, myself, I had a 16% Republican index, and I was in the congressional seat, overwhelmingly Democrat. And I had a longtime Democrat running against me who became so frustrated at a debate one night. He pointed to me and he said, he looks like a Democrat. He talks like a Democrat. He smells like a Democrat, which I don't know what that is. He said, but he's not a Democrat. I've told you 100 times the guy was having a meltdown. And because, no matter what you would say to people in the Democrat majority, they were voting for me. And, and I appreciated that. But there was a reason. They had a perception of me. And maybe if my record was more conservative, it just sort of fit in with what they thought I would be. All right. And of course, they were conservative Democrats. Walz is sort of like the same type of situation in politics where No one really knows him outside Minnesota. So this is a chance for him to define himself. They tried to define him through J.D. Vance as a bad military guy. He lied about his military, etc. But last night kind of erases that. And J.D. Vance has had his own set of trouble. But Walz has one of these personas, whether he is like out of 1 to 10, if 10's conservative and 1's liberal, if he's a 2, I don't care what he is right now. The perception of that guy is, teacher, coach, fair guy, both sides of the aisle. That's the perception. It has worked so far of what the Democrats want to do. Now, the Trump campaign has to have an objective, and it's got to be through J.D. Vance, to dispel that and make it 2 liberals, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
As we wrap up, I want to hit on that real quick because tonight Kamala's speaking. If you're gauging the way these keynote speeches have gone, it's going to be written well, probably delivered well, right? She's going to be coached up. She'll be ready to go. That should be, I think, every reasonable person's expectation. But this time next week, right? This is okay. The pep rally's over. Here we go. Real quickly, Bob, what do both campaigns need to do in August? What does that need to start looking like all the way to November?
Okay, for my next statement, Chuck and Bob are going to get a lot of Hades because, you're turning on Trump. Here's the bottom line. Harris has to keep the mantra, if she knocks it out of the park tonight, the mantra that she has, which is, open tent, don't go back to the past, which is kind of funny because she's been with Biden for 3.5 years. She's got to keep that going. Inclusive, joyful hope. Trump has to get off of what he did yesterday. He called her dad a Marxist. Her dad's the most biggest Marxist in American history. He's come up with a new name, Communist Kamala. The Trump campaign has to get into definition. She's going to get a bump out of this convention. I'm predicting 7 to 8 points up bump. It'll come back down, all right, to maybe 3 or 4. But she's going to get a bump out of this. They're doing this the right way, unless she messes up tonight. So the Trump campaign, Chuck, very simply, get on point, define her, define what she's about, drop the nicknames, drop whether she's South Indian or black or whatever, drop it all, get to the point. What does Trump deliver? What can she not deliver? And, lighten up a little bit. That's what they need to do.
We said it, Bob, on my radio show the day before Trump spoke at the RNC convention, which I think that hour-and-a-half speech really open the door for somebody else. The only person the night before Trump spoke at the RNC, the only person that could cost Trump the election, that could beat Trump, was Trump. And we'll see how it plays out over the next, what are we looking at, 76 days now, 75 days?
It's around the corner.
This has been Take 10. We'll see you next week.